Hello, everybody. My name's Connor Aiken, and this is how the African Americans contributed to the war effort both from home and abroad, and also how they were received afterwards. So, participation from home. The African Americans participated in the war effort both at home and abroad, and many black soldiers were discriminated against because many white folk did not know that African Americans could fight in the wars. This was because they were always seen as less than them or underneath them for so long that when they were working alongside them, this was something that they were not used to. One man who was particularly slow to come around to their incorporation into the army was Thomas Holcomb, and he resented the fact that blacks were able to fight in the wars. On his Marine Corps didn't permit any black men to become officers until 1945, years after all the other branches. And putting forth this effort is what led to blacks being appropriately received in all branches of the Army. In June of 1941, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP as most people know them, created a National Defense Day in protest of their current and past discrimination. Executive Order 8802 was passed by President Roosevelt, and he issued this in 1941 to do away with all governmental discrimination. A. Philip Randolph met with Eleanor Roosevelt and cabinet members and wrote out all the grievances African Americans go through, and they presented it, and this led to the order. Another thing that led to the order was Booker T. Spicely, and he was a black soldier who was killed on a segregated bus by the white bus driver after refusing to give up his seat. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt called on war, black leaders firmly announced that African Americans would no longer be supportive of the Jim Crow laws if they were going to sacrifice themselves and go fight in the war. After this, they then listed plenty of baselines of what they expected as far as how they were going to be treated. And even still, these were just the absolute bare minimum of how a human should be treated. And even still, these were initially scoffed at before eventually being accepted. As well as this, there was another change that let black men be trained as fighter pilots, leading to inevitable contact between white and black people because they were going to be training them and working alongside them as well. Now, as well as the participation from home, there's also participation abroad in the war. About half a million African Americans saw service in some way or another. Some saw the battlefield and fought for their country directly, while others saw more prominent roles in transportation by unloading supplies for the troops that were fighting. From 1944 to the end of the war, black amphibian truck drivers helped travel across France. And after D-Day, over 50,000 African American engineers helped rebuild buildings or set up camps to help with the damage done. The 761st Tank Battalion received the most commendation due to its high effort and output. They would also receive a President Distinguished Unit Citation, but not before being denied it multiple times. In Burma, 10,000 African Americans would work on constructing a road in the middle of the war. They were frequently under fire, but they completed it and received high praise by Navy officials because of it. And also, the Merchant Marine was a branch in the Army that 24,000 African Americans served in, as this was a group with much less segregation than many of the other branches. Many African Americans received high praise in the war by very high officials because of their impressive work, and this led to some units of African Americans receiving the unit citation, and deserving individuals, either in or out of the said units, receiving good conduct medals or a service cross. Doris Miller, who's pictured, was the very first African American to receive the Navy Cross for his work during Pearl Harbor, and he manned a machine gun with absolutely no training and managed to make the enemy leave when they were stationed in West Virginia. And as well as this, 82 African American pilots received flying crosses. As well as the 761st Tank Battalion, there was also the 320th Battalion, and they landed on the beach of France and tried to get their balloon back up in the air, which served as a distraction and led to a prominent D-Day victory. Waverly Woodson, who is pictured, was a student who was hit by shrapnel twice, and he was nominated for the Medal of Honor, but despite this, he never received it. And he saved men from drowning and set up camp only hours after being shot down himself, and he ended up saving over 200 people. But after this, he eventually collapsed from exhaustion and was shipped out to be treated, and after he was cleared, he asked to be shipped back to help out. John Robert Fox, who was the man on the right in the photo, was sacrificed by himself by calling a mortar strike on his position when he knew he was getting overrun by German soldiers. He was only 29 at the time and sacrificed himself on the day after Christmas, and this shows his devotion for his country, and this earned him the Distinguished Cross in 1982, which was still 38 years after his heroic death. Now, after the war was over, African Americans came back home and they were received in very ill ways. The Jim Crow laws were still prominent. Even despite all of the effort African Americans put forth home and abroad, the return home after the war brought back Jim Crow laws and lynching. And Private Felix Hall was hanged with his hands and feet bound as well, but he managed to kick free his feet and he got a hand free, and he was scooping dirt off of the wall and he was trying to stack it underneath his feet so he could have something to stand on so he wouldn't end up being hanged and take the pressure off of his neck. But the earth that he was scooping and standing on was too soft and it was giving way, and there was not enough pressure to be taken off of his neck, and he ended up passing. There was also a lot of violence at home, and from 1940 to 1941, there were 13 reported lynchings on African American soldiers just in that year alone. And in Kentucky, 3 black women were beaten because they didn't move fast enough out of the white-only waiting area. And some less violent segregation that went on was when the Red Cross separated black and white blood and would only give blood to the respective person, so black people would only be able to receive blood donated by other African Americans, and white people would only be able to receive blood donated by other white people, obviously. And buses were also segregated, and or whites were the people that ended up getting the first choice of where they were going to sit. And these were my references. I sure hope that this was very informational for you. I really enjoyed researching this topic, actually, and I hope that everybody has a great day.